On November the 12th, 2021, last week, one of America's most wanted fugitives was identified after 52 years. The mystery was solved of Ted Conrad. He pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in Cleveland, Ohio's history. On July the 11th, 1969, a 20-year-old man vanished after stealing $250,000 from a bank in Cleveland. That is an equivalent to $1.7 million today. The man walked out of the bank with the money in a paper bag, and it took bank employees 2 days to realize what had happened. And by then, the bank robber was long gone, having created a mystery that would take 5 decades to solve. Ted Conrad has been one of America's most wanted men since he committed the crime in 1969 while he was an employee at the Society National Bank in Cleveland. It took more than a half of a century, but federal investigators finally solved the cold case this week, tracking the man down in the suburbs of Boston. A U.S. Marshal from northern Ohio, Peter J. Elliott, whose dad had been on this case from its early days, said, quote, "This week we identified Thomas Randall as Theodore J. Conrad. He led an unassuming life in the suburbs of Boston." According to the federal investigators, they discovered just a few days ago that both Randall and Conrad were the same person. U.S. Marshals wanted Conrad for one of the biggest bank robberies in Cleveland's history. Investigators say Conrad stole what is now $1.7 million in today's money from the bank where he worked before he disappeared, saying that he left on July the 11th with $250,000 in a paper bag and he was never seen again. Conrad was also obsessed with the 1968 movie The Thomas Crown Affair, which shows a man pulling off a perfect crime at a Boston bank, and likely that is what inspired Conrad to do this. He was able to disappear with the money, and his story sparked such curiosity that it became a popular mystery, and with the story being featured on America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. An investigative journalist who's been following this case said there's no way that you could do what Ted Conrad did in 1969 today. There is no way you could get away with it. First of all, you can't create a name out of nothing anymore. Investigators traveled across the country looking for him, but always came back empty-handed. But finally, a breakthrough came last week. U.S. Marshals finally identified Conrad as Thomas Randall of Linfield, Massachusetts. The robber had moved to the Bay Area in 1970. He was leading a normal life, and he avoided capture for more than 50 years until he died from lung cancer in May of 2021 at the age of 71, authorities say. Many of his neighbors say that they knew him for years, but they had no idea that he was one of America's most wanted fugitives. But the biggest question is, how did he pull it off? How did he remain hidden all this time? Investigators from Cleveland say they were able to identify Conrad by matching documents he signed in the 60s to more recent court paperwork from a 2014 bankruptcy case, determining they were the same person. And this is the news release that was given from the U.S. Marshals Service on November the 12th, 2021. And it reads, one of America's most wanted fugitives identified after 52 years. Mystery solved of Ted Conrad, who pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in Cleveland, Ohio history. Cleveland, Ohio. On Friday, July the 11th, 1969, Theodore John Conrad walked into his job at the Society National Bank at 127 Public Square in Cleveland as an ordinary bank teller. He walked out at the end of the day with $215,000, which is equivalent to over $1.7 million in 2021. He had this in a paper bag and he just vanished. Conrad, age 20, pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in Cleveland, Ohio history. It was not until the following Monday morning, when Conrad failed to report to work, that the bank checked their vault only to find the missing money along with their missing employee. And from there, Conrad and the money he stole had a 2-day head start on law enforcement. A year before the Cleveland bank robbery, Conrad became obsessed with the 1968 Steve McQueen film, The Thomas Crown Affair. The movie was based on a bank robbery for sport by a millionaire businessman, and Conrad saw it more than half a dozen times. And from there, he bragged to his friends about how easy it would be to take money from the bank, and even told them that he planned to do so. The fugitive investigation into Theodore Ted Conrad was perplexed. Many investigators over the past 50 years, Conrad has been featured on America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. Investigators chased leads across the country, including Washington, D.C., Inglewood, California, Western Texas, Oregon, and Honolulu, Hawaii. The case remained cold until this past weekend, when United States Marshals from Cleveland, Ohio, traveled to Boston and positively identified Thomas Rendell of Linfield as the name of Theodore J. Conrad. He had been living an unassuming life in the Boston suburb since 1970, and ironically, he moved to Boston near the location where the original Thomas Crown Affair movie was filmed. Absolutely amazing, and over half a century later, it is finally solved. Now keep in mind, Ted Conrad has passed away, so there's really going to be no justice, but I'm curious to know, did he go on to make a family? I would love to hear what they have to say. Did they ever know this? Unreal, unreal. Thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, this is Unjustified.